I wonder what you're like with surprises. Whether you love surprises like me or whether you hate them. Now, when I was little, my brother used to hide inside the laundry basket that sat at the top of the stairs, and he would wait for ages for me to walk by. And if I didn't come up in a certain amount of time, he would call my name, so I'd have to go upstairs. And when I got to the top of the stairs, he would suddenly burst out of the laundry basket and make me jump. Now, those kind of surprises, I don't like very much. And I've learnt to try and expect the unexpected, but I still jump at a lot of things. But I love great surprises, things that are amazing that I never thought could possibly be. And so today we're thinking about the story of Peter, an incredible story of this miraculous catch of fish. And we know the story. We know that God provided the most amazing amount of fish when he put the nets out. But Peter didn't expect that at all. Now, Peter had known about Jesus. He had heard about him, and even in chapter 4 of Luke, we hear how Peter, his mother-in-law, had been sick and Jesus had healed her. And so we understand from what it is that we read in the Bible that Peter had heard of Jesus and had spoken to him and been around him, but still was fishing, still was doing his job as he always had done. And so as we start our story today, Jesus is down on the beach and the crowds are coming in. And as they come in, there are too many of them for them all to see and hear Jesus. And he sees Peter and his friends. He sees a fisherman at the side of the water washing out their nets and asks if he can use Peter's boat. And so he's taken into the water down beside the Lake of Galilee. And there he sits and speaks to all the people. And as he is speaking, as he's teaching the crowd all about God, Jesus knows that the fishermen are there and knows that they're washing out their nets. And when he dismisses the crowd, he doesn't get up and go. He doesn't leave the fishermen to it, because he's got a special calling, a calling for these men. And so he speaks to Peter. Take the boat out to deeper sea and let down your net to catch fish. Now notice there what Jesus says. He gives a command and a promise. Take your boat out, let down your net to catch fish. And Peter, he's a fisherman. He knows how to fish and when to fish and where's the best place. And yet Jesus is telling him to go during the daytime to a place where he's already been fishing all night. But Peter says, because you say so, I will do it. And so Peter takes the boat with Jesus, we believe, to the place where Jesus has told him to. He lets down the net, and as we know, there are so many fish that the net begins to tear, and he calls over his friends, and the two boats haul in the catch. And there are so many fish that it fills up each boat, so much so that the boats begin to sink. Now, instead of Peter jumping with joy and being so overwhelmed at this, instead of calling out to everyone, hey, look at this, he suddenly gets to his knees and says something incredible. Get away from me, Lord, for I am a sinner. Now, when Peter first spoke to Jesus, he called him Master. Master as though commander or boss, and followed the instruction to go into deeper water. But when he sees the miraculous catch, he changes what he calls Jesus to Lord. Not as in Christ, he makes that later on when he really knows who Jesus is, but to Lord, Holy One. You see, when Peter saw this incredible catch of fish, Peter knew that this was totally and utterly unexpected. This shouldn't have happened. There is no way he should have caught fish in that place at that time, and he'd never caught as many fish as this in his entire life. And instead of him turning it around and celebrating when he got to his knees, it's because he realised that this holy man was someone so incredible and so special that he saw that against Jesus, that he was someone who'd done wrong. He was someone who, first of all, didn't follow completely what Jesus said. He'd heard about him and listened to him, but he wasn't prepared to give up everything before. He'd gone back to the fishing boats. But now he was there and seen the fish and seen that Jesus was master of even the oceans. Something changed within him. And so Jesus speaks so graciously to Peter. He says, "Do not be afraid." And the word that he uses, the translation, it means do not keep on being fearful. Meaning that Peter was afraid and he had been afraid and he was continuing to be afraid. And Jesus was saying, stop. You don't need to be afraid. Instead, I will make you a fisher of men. See, at the moment when Peter wants to push Jesus away, Jesus wants to open his arms and pull Peter into him. And we sometimes feel like that, don't we? When we speak about God or hear of him, when we read in the Bible about what he has done, we sometimes think that he is so holy and so special and so other than us that we can't possibly get close to him, that we want to push him away because we're fearful of what we have done. But Jesus' words to us are the same as his to Peter. Do not be afraid and do not carry on being afraid. But I will turn this around for my good. You see, when Jesus told Peter he was going to be a fisher of men, it was for God's kingdom and for God's glory. Peter was going to use what he had done, his skills, in a whole new way and a new way of life. And Peter